If you're a fan of gaming, I'm sure you probably heard of both Uncharted 4 and Overwatch games. You're probably thinking, what the hell does either of these games have to do with each other? Well, both came out in 2016 and one ended up winning Game of the Year over the other. And that game was Overwatch, beating out games such as Doom, Insight, Timefall 2, and last but not least, Uncharted 4.
The biggest pirate treasure of all time is within our grasp. Watch out!
Look, Nate, I'm gonna make you a one-time offer. Drop everything. Go home. Live your life. Or we can just end it right here.
There's gotta be another way. I need you on this one.
It had visuals, the gameplay, the story, the excitement, the adventure. It lived up to the hype. So why didn't Uncharted 4 win? Starting off with the fact that Uncharted did win multiple Game of the Year awards, including one at the BFTA Game Awards 2017, GameSpot's SSXW Game Awards 2017, and multiple from other critics and publications. It actually received more Game of the Year awards than any other game for its release year. So you might be thinking, what are you complaining about? Uncharted won its fair share. But here's the thing, Uncharted didn't win the main Game of the Year award. Overwatch ended up winning Game of the Year at the 2016 Game Awards. What was their message after winning? While we've been very happy with how the game has been received, we're also extremely proud that this game and the world we're building has a message. And it's a message about heroism, it's a message about diversity, it's a message about a bright and positive and hopeful future. And these are all things that we really believe everyone needs a little bit of right now. Uncharted 4 didn't lose because it failed, it lost because it belonged to an older philosophy of gaming. Proof of this is the fact that Uncharted won more nominations than Overwatch, 8 to 6, and ended up winning Best Narrative and Best Performance for actor Nolan North as Nathan Drake. This was a sign that the industry was shifting from mastery to innovation. Overwatch wins Game of the Year despite Uncharted 4 having more nominations, and winning over 160 total Game of the Year awards while Overwatch won 102, showing that the main game awards prioritize something different than purely narrative/technical excellence. Blizzard Entertainment, the game that created Overwatch, being a company that heavily prioritizes inclusivity. Former Vice President Jeff Complain clarifies, "We very much believe in inclusivity at Blizzard, and I like to talk about inclusivity even more than diversity. We want Overwatch to be this bright, positive universe where everyone feels like they can be the hero. That's our most basic goal." While looking at the story of Uncharted 4, it prioritized adventure, legacy, brotherhood, exploration, and most importantly, fun. It was narratively satisfying. Like I said, it was an older philosophy of gaming, but maybe older is better in this scenario. Critics always praise Uncharted 4 for its mature and emotional story, stunning visuals, high production values, including detailed graphics, character models, and environments. Innovation isn't always going to be key if it involves taking away elements that player bases like. And this isn't only story elements. Mechanical depth, player autonomy, individual impact, progression systems are all things you can say why a game like Marvel Rivals outshot a game like Overwatch. Prioritizing brand virtues, symbolism over substance, ideological branding, aesthetic diversity aren't things most gamers are looking for. This isn't me saying Overwatch didn't do anything well or Uncharted 4 did every single thing perfectly. Overwatch has teamwork, strategy, polished art style, and unique weaponry and ability. This isn't me saying your gaming experience is going to be terrible playing Overwatch, or Overwatch shouldn't have been a contender for Game of the Year in 2016. I'm just saying it was a shift that has a preference of innovation and inclusivity over narrative and merit. Taking a look at the philosophy of Uncharted, that many developers nowadays would consider outdated or less profitable. Uncharted 4 was specifically built on a traditional AAA single-player philosophy, centering on an immersive narrative, mastery through cinematic directions, refinement over reinvention. The modern perception of this may be too restrictive. Many newer developers favor open-ended or live service systems that let players create their own story, quote-unquote. Taking a look at the industry data, it shows that 1 in 3 of AAA developers are working on live service games. Considering how massive the AAA development industry is, think Ubisoft, EA, Activision, Sony, etc. That's a major portion of the industry focused on a single business model. Taking another look at the traditional AAA philosophy that Uncharted utilized and what made it so good. The polishedness and the technical perfection. Every animation, the world around you, the texture, the sound were all done to maximum quality. Going back to the immersive narrative I was ranting about earlier, the narrative about emotional and cinematic depth that most games can't or struggle to replicate. A story that can be deep, family-oriented, and still be adventurous and fun at the same time. A main character who's efficient and charismatic but flawed. Adventurous and explorative but can get burnt out at times. Has a wife who's similar but doesn't mind living a normal life. Drake's marriage to Elena represents a grown-up side of gaming, a hero learning to choose love over obsession. Another scenario when Drake does this is in the final act of the game, when he chooses to leave the Avery treasure behind that he traveled across the entire world for. While being right there at the X spot, his brother Sam, not having the same mindset, decides to go after the treasure, saying,
I gotta see this thing through, Nathan.
Again, a hero learning to choose love and family over obsession is a strong theme in this game. Unlike many action franchises, Uncharted 4 centers its entire arc on family inherent to sacrifice. I talked about this in my previous video. Nathan and Sam chasing Sir Francis Drake's name and legacy, Cassie being the obvious heir to the franchise if Uncharted 5 was to be created. Inheritance has always been the backbone of this series. The result is a controlled experience. The developers are storytellers first, not content distributors. Bruce Straley, Uncharted 4's game director, stated, when you're making a cinematic game, control is your tool and your enemy at the same time. You give the player just enough to feel agency, but not enough to break the illusion. He's explaining the delicate balance between player control and cinematic storytelling. His version of gaming says, control is necessary to tell a story, but not 100% mandatory to tell a story. Modern gaming says control should be unlimited and players should make their own stories. That's not just my interpretation. Developers have openly admitted that this is the direction that the industry is choosing. Ubisoft CEO Yves Guillemot says players want a more free-form experience instead of a linear and directed one, going on to also state that we think gamers want more freedom. And this philosophy isn't just Ubisoft, EA is thinking the exact same way. In the cancelled EA Black Panther project, the game was pitched as a rich superhero sandbox, designed to give players more agency and control over their narrative rather than a traditional story-driven game. So even single-player superhero games are being reimagined as sandbox, player-driven experiences because that's a good portion of the new industry's mindset. The players should write and create the story, not the developers. These values being obviously displayed in major gaming development companies is showcasing change that is happening in the industry that affects the Game of the Year outcome. An industry that prioritizes building around a system and forced narratives and message versus natural ones. When developers focus on crafting a message first, the narrative becomes reactive instead of human. What was Uncharted 4 built around? Adventure, curiosity, building legacy with your family, and even marriage at times. Drake and Elena moving away from the exciting treasure hunting life to a normal life, quote unquote, which is a very broad term, but I think you get what the game is trying to say. Both of them having the urge to get back into the life, but Nate's being more amplified and displayed throughout the story. Obviously Sam pulling him back into the life because he described a grave danger situation he was in. We figure out later that this is later a lie and Sam just wanted an excuse to bring his brother back to help find the Avery treasure they knew of for 15 plus years. This lie also caused Nate to lie to Elena as well. She didn't even know her husband had a brother in the first place, which leads to their entire falling out, and not only the characters, but the audience questioning if our main character's marriage is going to still be intact afterwards. The idea that your marriage can fall apart in 1 second due to lying, deceitfulness, and pretending to work a job you don't even have. Letting your main characters become flawed individuals without destroying them, all of these different aspects that Uncharted 4 explored, while still being adventurous, while still being fun, while still having high energy and enthusiastic exploration. The Game of the Year in 2016 wanted to lean more towards community impact, innovation, multiplayer longevity, industry momentum, which are all things Overwatch carried, and that's why it came out on top. Uncharted 4 didn't lose because it was lackluster, it lost because the industry was changing. Not a failure of the game, a shift in the values of the people judging the games. Modern gaming values openness, message-first storytelling, representation, player-created stories, while Uncharted values cinematic mastery, grounded adventure, controlled pacing, handcrafted design. Uncharted 4 didn't lose because it failed, it succeeded at exactly what it tried to be. A complete, emotional adventure chapter for Nathan Drake and a perfect goodbye. Not every game needs to chase trends to matter. Not every story needs to shift its identity to stay relevant. Some games deserve to remain what it meant to be. So no, this isn't me making the case for there to be an Uncharted 5. Because Uncharted 4 closed the book perfectly, just right before the industry changed it to something different. Nathan Drake's story worked because he was untouchable while still being human at the same time. A man who could literally handle anything coming towards his way, and that is not an over-exaggeration at all. When I say anything, I mean anything. But he's also a man who risked everything, lied, messed up, fought, grew, loved, and found peace. Modern gaming seems to frown on traditional stories like that. Not without adding some kind of invisible checkbox behind it. Uncharted 4 didn't need a message. It didn't need to reinvent itself from what it made it great in the first place. It just enhanced it. And maybe that's the point. Some adventures should end before the industry forces them to change into something that they're not. Do I think all hope is over? No. According to PC Gamer, Sony canceled 8 of its 12 planned live service games by 2025. And the head of PlayStation Studios openly stated that they are diversifying, but the blockbuster single-player narrative games aren't going away, specifying that they will not neglect its core strength of single-player narrative adventures. Is diversifying a good sign for the direction? Not necessarily, but this does showcase that they're prioritizing narrative adventures and still see it as their core belief strength of what made their games good in the first place. Do I hate multiplayer live service games? No, it's actually the gaming content I would say I consume the most. I'm not saying live service bad, single player good. I'm saying the industry changes priorities, innovation, community longevity, message first design, and that shift is why Uncharted 4 lost to Overwatch. Someone like me can even acknowledge how the industry shift towards these games changed what Game of the Year communities rewarded in 2016. Every time you look at a game like Uncharted 4, it reminds us what gaming is supposed to be. A crafted journey, a story worth remembering. And proof that even in an industry chasing trends, and artistry still matters. Uncharted 4 didn't lose Game of the Year because it wouldn't endure. It lost because it stood for the values the gaming industry was already moving away from.